Be me, 28, just a regular dude. Got a job that pays the bills, not exciting, but it's stable. Have my own place, a car that runs, and a few good hobbies. Life is pretty straightforward. I like things to be clear, honest. Met Ramona a couple of years ago through a mutual acquaintance. It was easy from the start. No games, no drama. She was smart, funny, had this laugh that made you feel like you said the cleverest thing in the world. We just clicked. First few months were great. The kind of thing you see in movies, but figure never happens in real life. We'd spend weekends hiking or just exploring the city. We cooked together, blasting old music in the kitchen and making a huge mess. It felt like a team, a partnership. I'm not a complicated guy. If I like someone, I show it. I'd bring her coffee in the morning if I was up first. I'd remember some random thing she mentioned wanting and pick it up for her on my way home from work. She used to love that stuff. Said it showed I was listening. Our apartment became a shared space. Her books started filling my shelves. My old hoodies became her favorite thing to wear around the house. It was comfortable. It was good. We had our disagreements, like any couple, but we always talked them out. We'd sit down, figure out the problem, and solve it. No yelling, no silent treatment. Just two adults trying to make it work. I thought we had it figured out. I thought this was it. Then, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, things started to get weird. It started with her phone. She was always on it, more than usual. Scrolling. At first I didn't think anything of it. Everyone's addicted to their phone. But the content she was consuming started leaking into our conversations. It was all this new age feminist stuff from social media. Not the old school kind about equal pay and opportunity. This was different. It was all about power dynamics, the divine feminine, and something called the patriarchy that was apparently responsible for everything from bad weather to her having a rough day at work. I'd come home and she'd be watching some video of a woman with pink hair explaining why men who open doors for women are committing an act of benevolent sexism. I opened a door for her the other day. I wondered if I was a benevolent sexist. She started using phrases I'd never heard before. One time I offered to carry her heavy grocery bags. She gave me this strange look and said she didn't need a man to protect her from the burden of her own existence. The bags were just heavy, that was all. Another time, I was telling her about a problem I was having with my boss, just venting. She told me I needed to unpack my internalized male fragility and that my feelings were a product of patriarchal conditioning. I just wanted her to say, "That sucks, honey." It was like talking to a textbook, a very confusing, angry textbook. Her friends were the same. They'd come over and the conversation would be this echo chamber of buzzwords: male gaze, emotional labor, weaponized incompetence. I learned that when I forgot to take out the trash, it wasn't because I was just forgetful. It was a subconscious strategy to force her into a maternal role. It was weaponized incompetence. I felt like I needed a dictionary to understand my own girlfriend. I tried to be supportive. I figured it was just a phase. I'd listen, nod, and try to understand. But it was hard to have a normal conversation anymore. Everything became a lecture, a test. Everything I did was put under a microscope and analyzed for hidden toxic masculinity. The comfortable, easygoing nature of our relationship was evaporating. It was being replaced by this constant tension, like I was always one wrong word away from being a bad guy. Then the real game started. It began with texting. We used to text throughout the day. Little check-ins, funny pictures, plans for the evening. Suddenly, my messages would go unanswered for hours. I'd send a simple, "How's your day going?" in the morning. I could see it was delivered. I could see she was active on other apps. No reply. Then, maybe 8 hours later, I'd get a one-word answer. "Fine," or "busy." At first I was worried. I thought something was wrong, that she was mad at me. I asked her about it one evening. I said, "Hey, is everything okay? You seem a little distant lately." She looked at me, completely deadpan, and said, "My need for constant validation was draining." She said a secure man wouldn't need a text back right away. It made me feel stupid for even asking, like I was being clingy and insecure, so I backed off. I told myself she was just busy and I needed to chill out. But it kept happening. It got worse. Plans became suggestions, not commitments. We'd planned to go out for dinner on a Friday night. A reservation I made weeks in advance for a place she said she was dying to try. I'd get home from work, start getting ready. An hour before we were supposed to leave, I'd get a text. Feeling really drained tonight. Think I'm just gonna stay in with the girls. We can do it another time. No apology, no consideration for my time or the effort I put in. Another time never came. This happened 2 or 3 times. My weekends started to become this guessing game of whether or not our plans were real. I started to feel like I was her backup option. The warmth was gone. The affection vanished. She stopped initiating hugs. If I tried to kiss her, she'd turn her head so it landed on her cheek. In bed, she'd roll over to the far side of the mattress, creating a huge empty space between us. It felt like sleeping next to a roommate, not a partner. She started making little digs at me, usually in front of her friends. She'd criticize the music I listened to, calling it basic male rock. She made fun of my hobbies, saying my interest in building models was a way of exerting control over a miniature world because I felt powerless in the real one. Her friends would laugh. I'd just sit there and take it. I felt like a walking stereotype in my own home, the bumbling, emotionally stunted boyfriend character from a sitcom. I tried to talk to her again. I had to. This couldn't be our new normal. I sat her down one evening. I turned off the TV. I made sure I had her full attention. I told her calmly that I was unhappy. I said I felt like she didn't respect me or our relationship anymore. I mentioned the canceled plans, the lack of affection, the constant criticism. I asked her what was going on. I asked her what I did wrong. I was ready to fix whatever it was. Her reaction was ice cold. She didn't get angry. She didn't get defensive. She just looked at me with this condescending pity. She told me I was being too emotional. She explained, as if to a child, that relationships go through phases. She said she was focusing on her own journey of self-discovery, and that my neediness was holding her back. Then she delivered the line that really stuck with me. Frankly, Carl, you've become too comfortable, too predictable. There's no challenge anymore. I just stared at her. A challenge? I thought we were building a life together, not competing in some kind of emotional Olympics. I didn't want a challenge. I wanted a partner. That conversation was a dead end. Nothing changed. In fact, it got worse. It was like me bringing it up gave her a green light to double down. She started staying out late with her friends without telling me where she was going or when she'd be back. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and the other side of the bed would be empty. I'd call her and it would go straight to voicemail. She'd stroll in hours later, smelling of wine, and get annoyed if I asked where she'd been. I don't have to report to you, she'd say. I'm an independent woman, not your property. I never said she was my property. I was just worried. I was losing my mind. I was constantly anxious, walking on eggshells. I replayed every conversation in my head, trying to figure out what I did to cause this. Did I get too comfortable? Was I a bad partner? I tried to be what she wanted. I tried to be more of a challenge. I tried to be less available. I made plans with my own friends, trying to give her the space she said she wanted. It didn't work. If I was busy, she'd accuse me of being distant and passive-aggressive. If I was available, I was needy and suffocating. There was no way to win. It was a game where she made up the rules as she went along. I felt exhausted, drained down to the bone. The person I loved had been replaced by this cold, manipulative stranger who seemed to enjoy making me feel small. The worst part was the little glimmers of the old Ramona that would sometimes appear. Maybe once every couple of weeks she'd be sweet again for an evening. She'd make my favorite dinner or suggest we watch a movie we both loved. She'd be affectionate and funny, and for a few hours I'd feel a rush of hope. I'd think, okay, she's back. The phase is over. We're going to be okay. Then, the next morning, the wall would be back up. The coldness would return, even more intense than before. It was a roller coaster, a calculated push and pull. It was keeping me hooked, keeping me hoping, keeping me off balance. Looking back, I can see how deliberate it all was. It was a strategy, a technique she was using on me. At the time, I just felt lost. I was living with a ghost. The apartment we had built into a home felt like a cold, empty box. The shared jokes, the easy intimacy, the feeling of being on the same team. It was all gone, replaced by silence and the constant blue glow of her phone screen. I started to feel numb. The constant anxiety was fading, replaced by a dull, persistent ache. It was the feeling of giving up. I stopped trying to initiate conversations about us. I stopped suggesting we do things together. I started just coexisting. I'd come home, make my own dinner, and retreat to my computer to play games or watch videos. We were living separate lives under the same roof. I think she noticed the change in me. My anxiety was gone, but so was my warmth. I was becoming as distant as she was, but I wasn't playing a game. I was just tired. I thought this was how it was going to be until one of us finally had the guts to end it. A slow, miserable fizzle. I had no idea that the breaking point was just around the corner. I had no idea that I was about to find out the truth behind her behavior. Not just the why, but the how. The cold, calculated mechanics of it all. It was a random weekday. I don't remember which one. I got off work a little early. The boss let everyone go home because of a system update or something. I figured I'd get home, have a quiet hour to myself, before Ramona got back from her job. I walked up to our apartment door. I could hear her voice inside. She must have gotten home early too. She was on the phone, and she was laughing. It wasn't the fake, polite laugh she used around me anymore. It was her real, genuine laugh, the one I hadn't heard in months. For a second, my heart lifted. Maybe she had a good day. Maybe tonight would be one of the good nights. I put my key in the lock as quietly as I could, not wanting to interrupt her call. I opened the door and stepped inside. She was in the living room, her back to me, pacing back and forth as she talked. She didn't hear me come in, and I stood there in the hallway, frozen, as I started to hear what she was saying. The words floated out of the living room and hit me like a punch to the gut. Each sentence was a new revelation, a new piece of a puzzle I didn't even know I was solving. And with every word, the image of the woman I loved shattered into a million tiny pieces. The ache in my chest, the confusion, the self-doubt I'd been feeling for months. It all vanished. It was replaced by something else, something cold, quiet, and crystal clear. I was standing in the hallway, my keys still in my hand. Ramona was in the living room, talking on the phone, her voice bright and animated. "No, listen, it's psychology," she was saying, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Men are wired to chase. If they're not chasing, they get bored. They see you as low value." There was a pause. She was listening to her friend on the other end. Exactly, like Carl. He was perfect, too perfect. Always there, always agreeable. It was like having a golden retriever. Sweet, but you don't exactly respect it, you know? I felt my hand tighten on my keys. My knuckles went white. "So, I started implementing the strategy we talked about," she continued, her voice full of pride. "The push-pull. I pull away, act distant, and it makes him anxious. The anxiety makes him try harder. It's classic attachment theory." I just stood there, completely still. It was like I was outside my own body, listening to a documentary about my life. Last week, when I canceled our dinner plans at the last minute, he was so dejected. The next day, he brought me flowers. See? It works. It's like training a dog. You have to be the alpha. You control the supply of affection, and that gives you all the power. Training a dog. That's what she said. "Oh, he tried to have a talk about it," she laughed. He was all, "I feel like you don't respect me anymore." It was so hard not to roll my eyes. I just told him he was being needy, flipped it right back on him. He's been walking on eggshells ever since. It's honestly kind of hot, seeing him so desperate to please me. Desperate. She saw my genuine concern, my attempt to save our relationship, as desperation. She saw my love as a weakness she could exploit. "The goal is to keep them slightly off balance, always guessing," she explained, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper, like she was sharing a secret formula for success. "You can't let them feel too secure. Security breeds contempt. He needs to feel like he could lose me at any moment. That's what keeps the spark alive." And then came the final sentence, the one that severed the last thread. "Honestly, it's not even about him. It's about me feeling powerful and in control of the dynamic. That's what modern feminism is really about, taking back the power in relationships." I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt nothing. It was like a switch was flipped in the back of my brain, a circuit breaker. The part of me that was connected to her, the part that worried about her and cared for her and loved her, it just went dark. The emotional investment I had in our relationship, all the energy, all the hope, it all just vanished. It was gone. I didn't slam a door. I didn't storm in and confront her. I quietly turned around, pulled the door shut without making a sound, and walked away from the apartment. I walked for hours. I don't know where I went. I just walked through the city streets, the noise of the traffic fading into a dull hum. My mind was completely silent. For the first time in months, I wasn't anxious. I wasn't replaying scenarios in my head. I wasn't trying to figure out what I did wrong. I knew what was wrong. It wasn't me. I wasn't a partner to her. I was a project, an experiment, a dog to be trained. And in that moment, the experiment was over. I got back to the apartment late. It was after midnight. The lights were off, except for a small lamp in the living room. Ramona was on the couch, pretending to read a book. She was waiting for me. "Where have you been?" she asked. Her voice had that carefully crafted tone of annoyed indifference, the one she used to put me on the defensive. It didn't work anymore. "Out," I said. I walked past her into the kitchen and got a glass of water. "Out where?" she pressed. "You didn't answer your phone." "My phone died," I said, which was true. I hadn't even noticed. I drank the water and went to the bedroom. I started getting ready for bed. She followed me, leaning against the doorframe, the classic power pose. "You're just going to go to sleep? You disappear for hours and you have nothing to say?" I looked at her, really looked at her. I didn't see the woman I fell in love with. I saw a strategist, a game player. "I'm tired," I said. "I'm going to bed." I got into my side of the bed. I turned my back to her, and I fell asleep almost instantly. The next morning, the dynamic had shifted, but only I knew why. I woke up first, like always. But I didn't make coffee for two. I made 1 cup, for me. I didn't wake her up with a kiss. I just got showered, dressed, and left for work. I sent her no text during the day. No "good morning," no "how are you." The silence from my end was absolute. Around noon, I got a text from her. "Everything okay?" I looked at the message. I put my phone down. I went back to work. I replied 3 hours later. "Yep." After work, I didn't go straight home. I went to the gym. I hadn't been in months because I was always trying to rush home to spend time with her, to fix things. I had a great workout. I felt clear-headed. I got home. She was in the kitchen making dinner. This was a surprise. She hadn't cooked a proper meal in a long time. "Hey," she said, a little too brightly. "I'm making that pasta you like." "Cool," I said. I went and took a shower. We ate dinner in near silence. She tried to start conversations. She asked about my day. I gave short, simple answers. It was fine. Work was busy. Nothing much happened. I wasn't being rude. I wasn't being passive-aggressive. I was just detached. The answers were factual. There was no emotion to add. I could see the confusion on her face. This wasn't the reaction she was used to. She was used to me being anxious, trying to fill the silence, asking her what was wrong. Now, the silence was just silence. It didn't bother me. After dinner, I cleared my plate, put it in the dishwasher, and went to my computer. I put on my headphones and started playing a game with some online friends. An hour later, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I took off my headphones. It was Ramona. "Are you just going to be on that thing all night?" she asked. "Probably," I said. "Why?" She seemed taken aback by the directness. "I just thought, maybe we could watch a movie or something." "No thanks," I said, putting my headphones back on. "I'm busy." The look on her face was a mixture of shock and disbelief. She stood there for a moment, then walked away. This became the new pattern. I operated on my own schedule. I went to the gym. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected. I focused on my hobbies. My life no longer revolved around her moods. I was polite. I was civil. I was a perfectly functional roommate. But the boyfriend was gone. He'd clocked out, permanently. Ramona didn't know what to do. Her playbook was useless. She tried escalating her old tactics. She'd get dressed up and go out with her friends, making a point of telling me not to wait up. The old me would have been a wreck, sitting at home, imagining the worst. The new me just said, "Okay, have fun," and genuinely meant it. Her absence was a relief. She tried to make me jealous. She'd mention some guy from her work who was so funny or so smart. I'd just nod and say, "That's nice." It was like throwing a tennis ball against a brick wall. There was no bounce back, no reaction. Her game required my emotional participation. Without it, she was just a person acting strangely in an empty room. After a week or two of this, her strategy changed. The cold, distant persona she'd crafted started to crack. She started trying to be the old Ramona again. She started leaving me little notes. She'd buy my favorite snacks. She'd suggest we go to our old favorite spots. She was trying to turn the affection back on, thinking it would work like a faucet. One evening, I came home from a friend's house. She had set up a whole candlelit dinner. She was wearing a dress I'd always liked. "Surprise," she said, smiling. "I already ate," I told her. "I grabbed a burger with my friends." The smile on her face faltered. "Oh, I made all this for you." "It looks nice," I said. "You can save some for me for lunch tomorrow." I walked past her and started my usual evening routine. I could feel her eyes on my back. It wasn't a look of power anymore. It was a look of desperation. The role reversal was complete. She was now the one trying too hard. She was the one who was anxious. She was the one walking on eggshells. She started texting me constantly. "Thinking of you. Miss you. Can't wait for you to get home." My replies were sparse and delayed. I wasn't doing it to be cruel. I just didn't have anything to say back. The feelings that would have inspired a warm response were gone. She started asking me what was wrong. "Carl, we need to talk. You've been so distant. You've changed. It feels like you don't care about me anymore." The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. She was literally describing the behavior she had intentionally inflicted on me for months. But she was blind to it. In her mind, when she did it, it was a clever strategy. When I did it, it was a personal attack. I always just gave her the same response. "I'm fine, just been busy." I never gave her the fight she wanted. I never gave her the emotional breakdown she was probably hoping for. My indifference was my armor. It was impenetrable. The breaking point came about a month after that phone call. It was a Saturday night. I was getting ready to go out with my friends. She came into the bedroom as I was putting on my jacket. "Where are you going?" she asked. Her voice was small. "Out with the guys," I said. "We're going to see a band." "Can I come?" The question hung in the air. The old me would have been thrilled. "It's just a guy's night," I said. She finally broke. Her face crumpled. Tears started streaming down her cheeks. "I can't do this anymore, Carl," she sobbed. "I don't know what I did, but I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. Please, just talk to me. Why are you being so cold?" She was standing in front of me, crying, begging for an answer. For the first time, I decided to give her one. I looked at her, my expression completely neutral. The time for games was over. The time for her to see the consequences of her actions had arrived. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was just going to tell her the truth. And the truth was going to be colder than any silent treatment she had ever given me. She stood there, tears flowing, asking me why I was so cold. It was the opening I needed, not for an argument, but for a conclusion. "You want to know why?" I asked. My voice was calm even. There was no anger in it, no hurt, just finality. She nodded, wiping her eyes, probably expecting me to finally unleash all the emotion I'd been holding back. "Because this is what you wanted," I said. "This is the challenge you were talking about. This is me not being too comfortable or too predictable." The crying stopped. Her face went blank with confusion. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your game," I said, my gaze steady. "Your strategy, the push-pull, the manufactured distance, the idea that you needed to train me like a dog to keep my interest." Her eyes widened in horror. The color drained from her face. She knew. I don't know what you mean," she stammered, but the lie was written all over her. "Don't you?" I continued, taking a step closer. "I came home early that day, a month ago. I heard you on the phone with your friend. I heard everything, Ramona, every single word." I watched the realization wash over her. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. "I heard you laughing about how you were manipulating me," I said, listing the facts without emotion. "I heard you say my concern was desperate and hot. I heard you say my love was like a golden retriever's, sweet but not worthy of respect. I heard you say it was all about you feeling powerful." She just stared at me, her mouth slightly open. She had nothing, no defense, no explanation. "So, you got what you wanted," I concluded, my voice flat. "You successfully killed the golden retriever. You killed the predictability. You killed the comfort. You killed every last feeling I had for you." She started shaking her head, the tears starting again, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of frustration. They were tears of panic. "No, Carl, no," she pleaded, reaching for my arm. "It wasn't like that. It was just stupid talk. I was just repeating dumb stuff I saw online. I didn't mean it. I love you. I didn't pull my arm away. I just let her hand rest there. It felt like a stranger's touch. It doesn't matter if you meant it or not, I said. The damage is done. You can't put the bullet back in the gun. You played a game to make me feel insecure and anxious. It worked for a while. But then you won. And the prize for winning was that you turned off the part of me that was capable of loving you. I can fix it, she cried. I can be the way I was before. I'll show you. I'll do anything. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of something. It wasn't love. It was pity. Pity that she thought this was something that could be fixed. Pity that she thought feelings were a switch you could just flip back on. That's the part you don't understand, I said softly. My coldness isn't a strategy. It's not a game. It's not the silent treatment. It's not me trying to punish you. It's a result. It's the end of a chemical reaction. There's nothing left to react. I gently removed her hand from my arm. I'm not angry at you, Ramona. I'm not even hurt anymore. I'm just done. There's nothing here to save. I walked over to the closet and pulled out a duffel bag. I started putting my clothes in it. Not all of them, just enough for a few days. What are you doing? She whispered, her voice trembling. I'm leaving, I said, not looking at her. I'll stay at a friend's place for a bit. I'll come back for the rest of my stuff next week. You can decide if you want to find a new place or if I do. I don't really care either way. Please, she begged, following me as I moved around the room. Please don't do this. We can go to counseling. We can work through it. Don't throw all this away over a stupid mistake. I stopped packing and turned to face her one last time. This wasn't a mistake, I said. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is saying the wrong thing in an argument. What you did was a conscious, deliberate, long-term campaign of emotional manipulation because you read some garbage online that told you respect is earned through cruelty. I zipped up the duffel bag. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a subject for your experiment. Well, the experiment is over, and the results are in. You can't build attraction by destroying affection. You just end up with nothing. I walked out of the bedroom and headed for the front door. She was right behind me, still pleading. I love you, Carl. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Please. I paused at the door, my hand on the knob. I didn't turn around. The person you loved, the comfortable and predictable guy, you got rid of him, and this person standing here now, I have no feelings for you whatsoever. I opened the door. Goodbye, Ramona. I walked out and closed the door behind me. I didn't hear her cry out. I just heard the soft click of the lock. As I walked down the hallway of the apartment building, a feeling washed over me. It wasn't sadness or regret. It was peace. It was the quiet, profound relief of a man who had finally been set free from a prison he didn't even know he was in. The next week was just logistics. We texted a few times, simple messages about who would get what. Her texts were filled with apologies and desperate attempts to reconnect. I miss you so much. I'm so sorry for hurting you. Can we please just talk? My replies were short and to the point, focused only on the practical matter of separating our lives. You can keep the couch. I'll take the TV. I'll be there Saturday morning to get my things. Please be there to let me in. When I went back to get the rest of my stuff, she was there. She had been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy. She tried to talk to me, to apologize again. I just nodded and kept packing boxes. I didn't engage. It was like listening to a radio playing in another room. The sound was there, but the words had no meaning. The whole time, I was polite. I was efficient. I was a stranger helping a roommate move out. The last thing I took was a picture of us from the wall. It was from our first trip together, hiking in the mountains. We were both smiling, genuinely happy. I looked at the man in the picture. He seemed so young, so naive. He had no idea what was coming. I took the photo out of the frame, looked at it one last time, and then I tore it in half. I dropped the 2 pieces into the trash can on my way out the door. I never saw her again. I heard from a mutual friend a few months later that she was a mess, that she was telling everyone she had made the biggest mistake of her life and had ruined the best relationship she'd ever had. I felt nothing when I heard that. Her regret was her own burden to carry. It had nothing to do with me anymore. It's been over a year now. My life is quiet. It's simple. It's my own. I learned a valuable lesson from all of it. You can't build a relationship on games and power dynamics. Love isn't a challenge to be won or a test to be passed. It's a partnership. It's about trust and respect. And when that trust is broken, when you find out you're just a pawn in someone else's game, you don't play back. You don't try to win. You just get up and walk away from the board, permanently.